Hello and welcome to today's session where we're going to be talking about Report Builder, a tool by Microsoft similar to SSRS, probably a little bit lighter than that. A lot of times when we talk about building reports, we're thinking of something that an accountant will look at, maybe a spreadsheet with some numbers on it. But what we're going to find out, Report Builder and SSRS are very powerful tools that allow us to build things that are integrated, things that have dashboards and allow us to do different computations and calculations and filters and sorting. In addition to that, when I log into something like my bank account and I want to get a date range and see my account, my deposits and withdrawals, that is something that I could use either SSRS or in this case Report Builder to develop an interface like that. If I'm logging into a website when I'm going online, buying stuff and selling stuff and tracking stuff, or I have a date range, or I'm logging in with an account, that is another example of where I could use something such as Report Builder. So we're going to find out that there's a lot of very powerful features. We're going to start very basic, and we're going to keep building and building and seeing how powerful of a tool it is to be able to use Report Builder eventually as well as SSRS. So in this case today, we do have a table. The database server is Learn IT Courses. The database name is Learn IT Courses Online, so that's the server name. And that's our database name. And finally, that's our table name. So our data set is a select statement from which we're getting the data, and basically we're getting all of the data from that table in that database, in that server. So now we're going to go in, open Report Builder, and query that and get that information. But then we're going to go a step further, because usually when you log in, you're not looking at all the information that exists within a table, but you're looking at something specific. You want to be able to filter down. For example, when I log into my bank account, I don't expect to see everybody's bank account information. I expect to see only my account, my name. Similarly, if I'm flying out and I have a special with Cool Airways or Air Awesome, then I want to be able to, since I have a special with them or a discount with them, I want to be able to only see flights with Air Awesome or Cool Airways. Whether on the desktop or in our taskbar, Report Builder is this little red icon. It has Report Builder on it. And to start it up, we're going to click on it. And that pulls up our SQL Server Report Builder. In this case, we're using the version 2016. We're going to go very simple, very basic with the most basic report, and then we're going to get deeper and deeper with it. So in the first case, we're just going to build a simple basic table report. And of course, it's going to ask us for a data set. Usually when you work within a company or you develop quite a few reports, you would have already created a shared data set, so you don't have to create that a lot, or data sources and so on. So it's not, you're always going to find a set of those available since you've done a lot of development. But in this case, since we're starting from scratch, we're just going to create a new data set. Click Next. Similarly, if we had an environment we've created quite a few, then we'd have shared data sources or existing data sources. But in this case, it's a new one, so we're going to create a new data source in which we're going to give our data source a name, and we're going to call it Learn, in reference to our database, Learn IT Courses. So the data source is called data source Learn IT Courses. Now we need to build our connection, so we're going to click on Build. And here's where we need the information that we had earlier, our server name, our database name, and then in the next page, we're going to need our data set or the query that we're executing. So the server name, as we said, we already have that. We're just going to copy this here. In this case, that's what this is. I'm going to put that in. I don't need to copy and paste the database name since the server name is sent. It's going to have a drop down here. So I'm just going to drop down and select my database name, which is Learn IT Courses Online DB. That's the database. Click OK. Now I'm going to click OK here and click Next. Now we need to select the table or the query or the store procedure that we're using. I have a select statement, so I'm just going to click Edit as Text. And this is where I can place my select statement. So I'm going to go in, copy the select statement that I have. Let's paste it over here. And actually we can execute and test it. And voila, we've got our output here, so we know that this select statement works. So let's go ahead and do Next. For now, we're just going to put everything on the values. Next, next, finish. Choosing to hide behind SQL Server, we're going to bring it to the front. And again, if you use Microsoft quite a bit, then a lot of the editing is very easy, where you can go in and add a title to this to your report, and if you need to add images and so on, a lot of the things are very intuitive, and we're going to do that in the future, but for now we want to create a very basic report. So now we're going to go ahead and run our report. And as you can see, it pulled that information, the airlines, flight number, flight date, flight from, flight to, and then the price of that flight. But as we said, we're not looking to pull all that information. We want to filter by airline so that I can type in the airline that I want and pull that one specifically. So we're going to go back to design. There's a couple of ways we can do it, but we're going to start all the way from scratch. So we're going to close this out so that we can build a select statement to allow for that. Now suppose I'm not looking for all of it. I'm looking for where the airline is equal to something. And now in my select statement, I would have the where clause where airline is equal to, in this case, air awesome. Let's just execute the space. And I'm going to get that. Or I could choose the other airline that I have. But since it is a parameter, and I want the user to enter it at any time, what I do is I put the @, and then whatever I want to call that parameter, which in this case is just going to be airline. So basically, when I put this in my report, in Report Builder or SSRS, it tells it to allow the user to put whatever value. So we're going to have a little box, and that basically says whatever that person enters in that box goes into this value here. So if they put air awesome, then that's what's going to show up. If they put cool air, then that's what's going to show up. So let's go ahead, now that we've built our query, our select statement, go ahead and try and build that report from scratch. So we're going to go ahead, build our new report. Table. Next for new, create new. Since we haven't saved it, we're going to skip renaming this. We're going to build, put our server name, drop down, select our database, click OK, OK, next. And now we're going to edit as text so that we can put our select statement here. Since there's no value here, we won't be able to execute it, but we know that it's going to allow it to put a parameter. So it's going to prompt us for a box. It's not just going to run the values. So let's go ahead and see next. We're going to drag and drop all the columns in here, put it into values so we can get the values for all of them. Next, finish. Now let's run it. It's not just going to show us the data. It's supposed to have a little box. And based on that box, let's look at the different values that we have here. Just going to remove this out. We have Cool Airways and Air Awesome. So if I were to type in Air Awesome, we can click on either View Report or just hit Enter. Then it should pull the information for Air Awesome flights. If you were to type Cool Airways, Enter, then it should pull the information just for Cool Airways. And that's what happened here. So now we're going to go to the third level of parameters, which is a little bit deeper. In a lot of cases, the user doesn't know all the airlines that we do have. So we might have about 5 or 6 different airlines, and sometimes the spelling might differ. So, or I don't remember exactly how to spell it. And in that case, what I want to do is be able to provide the user with those values so they can check from a checkbox or from a variety of choices. So now what we want to do is not just have them type it because they can't see all the different options, but go a step further and allow them to select from a drop-down the parameter that they want to run with. So let's go ahead and start from scratch again. We'll go ahead and click Design. What we're interested in specifically is our parameter, airline. Now, a parameter can get its values from different sources. So let's go to parameter properties. Available values. We could either have none, as in this case, we don't populate it with anything. The second option is specify a value. So if we want a specific value, that's where we could actually go in and choose that. The third one is to get values from a query. We don't know how many flights we're going to have at any given time or how many different airlines we have at any given time. We're going to be able to get it dynamically. So we're going to get a value from a query, from a select statement. So before we can do any of this, we need to go to our data set. Just like we have our first data set, we want to create a new data set, add data set. We're going to refer to this data set as parameter. And we can name it anything we want, but just to make it clear for us to remember, parameter airline. So that's the airline parameter. We're going to go ahead and choose our data source, which is the same data source that we had initially. And now in the query, we're going to put a select statement that gets us the airlines. Let's go to SQL Server, or the SSMS piece of it. We're not interested in everything. We're just interested in a query that gets us the airlines. From a table. And we want to order it so it comes in alphabetical order. So it would have order by airline. Also, we're going to have duplicate values. And we don't want duplicate values. So what we want, one of each. So we'll have distinct between brackets, execute. So now we get the two distinct values that we have for airline. So this is our select statement. We're going to copy it and paste it in here. And click OK. So now we have a select statement. Let's go up to our parameter, which is airline. Right-click, parameter properties. Now we want to look at our available values. Specify or get values from a query. Data set. That's why we give it a specific name so we can remember it. So it's the parameter airline. The value we're looking for is airline, and the label field where it's going to display it in the report is airline as well. We're going to click OK. Actually, one more thing that we need to do is we want to check the first one and the third one, allow blank values and allow multiple values. Let's click OK. Now let's run it. Notice there's a drop-down box. It allows them to select Air Awesome if they want, one option. Get the values. Or select all. Looks like there's something we need to go back and fix. Now this error message is kind of important because it takes us back to our original data set. It's complaining about data set 1. And we want to find out why isn't this? I'm not selecting one value, but I'm selecting two values. Why is this not working? So let's go back to design and find out what our original query. This is something that's very important for us to work through together. And find out why isn't this working. So airline is equal to allows for one value at a time. And we want multiple values. So we need to change equal to in. And that way it allows for multiple values. So let's click OK. As a function, you put it between brackets. Click OK. So now our query has the in, allows it to enter multiple functions. And then our data set has the distinct values where we could select one or more. Let's go ahead and run it. Airline, select all. Since we're using in, we should be able to use and select both. So we're getting Cool Airways and Air Awesome. And if we only select one, the in function, not the equal, will allow us to get that. So if they're only supposed to select one value, we could use equal to or in, but if they're supposed to select multiple values, then the original data set should have the in so that we could pass multiple parameters or multiple values for that single parameter. And with that, we conclude our first exercise, seeing how we could develop a report using Report Builder with a parameter. In this case, a VARCHAR parameter would allow the users to enter one value or multiple values. Thank you for your time, and good luck with your lesson.